Hi, my name is Kanda Tando. I am a fourth-year social work student at the Nelson Mandela University of South Africa. I have been practicing social work with CIS Skills Institute for the recent time. CIS Skills Institute is a skills and training provider. They cater for young people, middle-aged adults, and older adults. And here I have learned so much, both about work and about life in general. But today I present to you a substance abuse awareness program. Why was this program born? Because I know substance abuse is pretty much a cliche. I myself have heard enough about lung cancer from smoking or liver damage from alcohol, but substance abuse remains a pressing issue, and it calls for us to keep on addressing it. Because as social workers, we understand that substance abuse is never just substance abuse. It always has underlying causes to it, and that is what we always aim to address, not just the drugs we see in the surface. So let's hit the ground running. The presentation will be twofold. I will cover information generally about substances, what drugs are, what causes them, what are some of the risk factors, what are the symptoms, what are the effects, and then the most interesting and exciting part, the intervention program I will introduce you to, something we call BI, brief intervention. Let's go. What is a drug? A drug is a substance introduced to the body, orally, nasal, that is with the nose, as an ointment, a rub, or an injection. These substances interfere with the brain's neurotransmitters, that is, they manipulate reality. Drugs come in two classes. There is the pharmaceutical class, that is drugs you can get over the counter at your nearest pharmacy, or recreational drugs, drugs that are not meant to address any illness. These can be alcohol, nicotine, that is the stuff you find in cigarettes, caffeine, the stuff you find in coffee. Drug abuse. The consumption of certain substances in doses or volumes and frequencies, that is times taken, that may lead to physical and psychological dependence. That is, drug abuse is the use of drugs to a point where you are dependent on the drugs, and this dependence can manifest psychologically, that is with feelings, or physically, that is you can tremble, you can crave and shake and be clumsy. The widespread use of drugs has been as a result of the 1960s popular culture, mass media, and music. This is just something to put out there so you can be aware that music, media, and this other stuff that is on radio, that is on TV, has a big influence on what kids do when they are away from you if you are a parent. Moving right along. There are different types of drugs, recreational drugs, that is what I'm talking about right now. And these are marijuana, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, prescription drugs, inhalant, and solvents. And sometimes sedatives, coffee, and cigarettes can be used to harmful excess. Now, prescription drugs have recently been on a trend where people are using drugs that are meant for illnesses as recreational drugs. This was widespread recently when people were using a lot of cough mixtures for a pleasurable high feeling because of the codeine inside of it. But moving right along, people use drugs because of myths. That is, they have inaccurate information on what drugs actually do, the effects of drugs, and the feelings drugs give off. Right? We have some men in South Africa and different cultures who believe that if you do not drink alcohol, you are not man enough. Right? So it's stuff like that. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is massively true. Some people use drugs because of rejection. Some people use drugs because of peer pressure. Some people use drugs because of emotional mismanagement, poor self-image, and lastly, the dopamine effect. The dopamine effect means that when you use a drug, you get a surge or a rushing force of a level of dopamine. That is, dopamine is a hormone that is responsible for the pleasurable feelings you feel when you are happy. So this hormone is elevated when you are on drugs. However, this may cause you to lose interest in normal reality. And this, when it happens, might lead to addiction. And there are some risk factors that may predispose people to using drugs, even besides the causes I mentioned earlier. Genetic makeup, genes, are somewhat related to risk factors that cause drug use. Mental health, when it is unchecked, can lead you to using drugs. Family and social disturbance. And this is something I need to highlight. In social work, family disturbance and substance abuse are always like this are always like this. Family challenges and substance abuse are always like this. So it really hurts me when I see organizations, schools, and all these other facilities that when they find kids on drugs, the first thing they do is they chase them out. Because I'm thinking to myself, well, if this kid is using drugs because his mom is on drugs, or his father is abusive, or his sibling is abusive, then you chasing him away from school, you are leading him right to the cause, right to what made him start using drugs in the first place, right? So this is why I feel like we need to have an empathic response to drug abuse. This is why I feel like we need to listen to people who are on drugs, explore people who are on drugs, and find out why they are on drugs before we go, hey, you have marijuana on campus, hey, you have heroin on campus, or you should go home. You don't appreciate this opportunity we are given to you. I am here telling you that next time you find someone on drugs, ask him a bunch of questions. Let him talk to you first. Have a conversation with him first. All right, what are the signs of substance abuse? Bloodshot eyes. These are physical warnings. Sudden weight loss, deterioration of physical appearance. This could be wrinkles. This could be darkening of lips. This could be the browning of fingers. This could be bad breath or impaired coordination. There are some behavioral warnings. In work environments, this could be the decline of performance. This could be financial problems. In relationships, this could be secretive habits. In social life, this could be the sudden change of friends or associates. This person can start being accident or trouble prone. That means they are clumsy, they are careless all of a sudden. And they have unexplained or seemingly irrational anxiety. You know, as a social worker, you get a client and they come to your office and you can see their eyes are bloodshot red, you know. And they sit down, and the first thing they do when they sit down is they kind of slouch and they look at you. And so you ask them, please introduce yourself, and they go ahead. And you ask them, so what brings you here? And they'll tell you, my mom doesn't like me, I have haters, people are out to get me, nobody likes me. And you ask him, do you want to explore on this? What causes people not to like you? And he will say something like, I don't know. It's like that is an irrational or an unexplained anxiety that he feels that people are out to get him, people are against him, people don't like him. You ask him why, and he cannot explain it. That is a sign that someone might be on drugs. Moving right along, the effects of drugs: memory loss, impaired or poor judgment, slowed reflexes, distorted senses. Now those were short-term effects. We have also chronic effects, that is long-term effects. These could be illnesses, broken relationships, road and other accidents, professional problems, immoral activities, and at worst, suicide. All right, I'm just going to move right along that. Prevention and control. The one thing we always advocate as social workers is that you should avoid being a victim of undue pressure. Don't let people pressure you into doing things that you are at the moment not capable of doing. And if this is you on the other end, do not press people into doing unduly things that are beyond their capacity. And we always advocate for organizations that host a lot of people, especially youth, that they should always have activities that confront loneliness, that confront isolation, that confront anxiety, because in that way you will really get people talking, you will really get people into activities that lead them away from drug abuse. I mean, if you've seen the rat maze where they have like a rat park, you know, the more fun activities there are for these rats, the less these rats will consume the drugs that are available for them in this park.
They concluded that drugs are uncontrollable and that a global war on drugs was necessary. But another scientist thought it was obvious that lonely rats in boring cages would choose drugs over water. So he put them in a lush cage called Rat Park with friends and everything a rat could want. His rats chose not to use drugs.
It's pretty much the same with us. If I have a bunch of stuff to do, I probably will not be using drugs. And as far as remedial measures are concerned, a humanistic form of approach and treatment is said to be the most widely effective of all forms of substance abuse attitudes and treatments. What does a humanistic approach to substance abuse look like? Well, enter BI, brief intervention. Now, BI is a behavioral change strategy that is short in duration and is aimed at helping a person reduce, I really like the word reduce, or stop a problematic behavior. BI is growing across a medical range of professions, and BI is an efficient and cost-effective strategy that can be used by a wide variety of professionals. You could be a teacher, you can use BI. You could be a policeman, you can still use BI. You can be a facilitator, you can still use BI. But how do you execute on BI? I present to you the 7 steps to a successful BI. 1. When you encounter someone on substance abuse, ask them open-ended questions. This encourages the person to explore and share their feelings, experiences, and perspectives. This looks a little something like this. How are things going for you at school? What do you think about the possibility of getting help for your substance abuse? Secondly, you must be affirming. You must recognize that the person, besides substance abuse, has strengths, has goals, and has values in his life, right? So recognizing these sounds like this. So what are some of the things you like about yourself? This encourages him to find his strengths, and then you go ahead and affirm him. Thank you so much for willing to share. Do you have family or friends who would like to see you sober? Little reasons for him to talk himself into change. But let's go right ahead. The 3rd step in BI is reflective listening. Listening is a primary way of showing empathy and a genuine willingness to try and understand the person's perspective. Skilled listening, this is really important. Skilled listening can prompt a person into thinking and talking themselves into change. That means all you have to do is ask and listen. This guy will start talking and talking and talking, and in that talking, they will start talking themselves into change. Because people are generally impressed by what they think and by what they say over what you, on the other hand, is saying. Moving right along with BI, we have our 4th step after asking open-ended questions, after affirming them, and after reflective listening. And this is eliciting change talks. Eliciting change talks means asking questions that lead the person into talking themselves into change. These questions are called evocative questions, right? Questions might sound a little like this. What are your concerns with using alcohol? What do you think you will do going forward? And if he starts mentioning things about stopping or wanting to reduce his use, so what gives you the confidence to believe you'll stop using these substances? What steps will you take in trying to be sober? You see, you're not imposing anything. You are asking him and giving him the opportunity to master his situation. That is step number 4, eliciting change talks, asking evocative questions. Our 5th step to BI is asking permission and then giving advice. There are some rules to giving advice, because advice will generally not be taken unless it has been asked or you have been given permission to give this advice. But you can give unsolicited advice if there is harm possible, either to the person or the person next to the person. Could be a friend or family members. Our 6th step to a successful BI is managing pushback. Well, the reality of social workers and any other change agents for that matter is that some clients don't want to change. And the statistic is that actually 20% of people who are on drugs are ready to change. The 80%, well, they are cool with doing it. So now, how do you respond to pushback? Pushback, for example, for explanation is a response that expresses opposition to an idea. That is, this person might argue, might interrupt you, might negate or avoid responsibility. They might ignore you, or they might make false promises. I have gotten a bunch of clients who will say, I will do this and that, and they don't. I will stop, and they don't. Right? Those are false promises. And at this point, when your efforts to try and support this person, when your efforts to try and be there for the person aren't welcome, then it is at this point as an organization, as a facility, as a school, that you say, well, this is totally your decision, right? It's your life, but you must understand that we want what is best for you. And there are some conditions that we cannot work under. Intoxication, for example, is something we cannot accept. And at that point, after asking questions that are open-ended, after affirming the dude, after asking questions that lead the person to talking themselves into change, after eliciting change talks, after our fifth one, after asking permission and giving advice, it is only then that you chase the person out of the institution. Some of the references I used include Dr. Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. I used Scribd, Drug Addiction Causes. I used Biology Discussion. I used Addiction of Drug, but I will paste them at the end of this video for you to check them out. Thank you for attending.